Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of the Moderately Athletic Podcast. I am your host, Sam Wantuck, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Tyler Noctical and Ethan Decker. Boys, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, Sam. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I'm doing good too, Wantuck. Ready for another episode.
That is great to hear. Now, so just so you guys know, the first week of preseason has just wrapped. And I guess I'm just wondering, guys, have we had a chance to watch any of it, or?
Yeah.
How are we doing?
Yeah, I watched some of the Packers game, and then just a few other I caught some of the Lions game and some of the Vikings game. But I'll tell you, when I was watching that Packers game, it really I saw the 49ers starting offense out there. And we won't get to him next episode, but till next episode. But the 49ers with Trey Lance, they might be scary. He looked pretty good, so that definitely influenced some of my rankings as taking into account these games. But they're still preseason. You got to take what you see with a grain of salt. So, but yeah, I was just excited to see football. What about you, Dick?
Yeah, like you, I checked out the Packers 49ers game on Friday night. That was about the only game I actually saw live. Saw, obviously, highlights and plays from other games as well. But watched a little bit of the first half today of the Viking game. And, obviously came away very displeased with Sean Mannion, as I think he should very well be cut.
I feel like you would be displeased with Kellen Mond. He did not look good at all.
Kellen Mond, not completely pleased with, obviously, either. 9 of 14 today, 119, 2 touchdowns, both that Albert Wilson, veteran receiver, brought in. But, we just got to go get a QB2 flat out. Just can't roll with either of those guys. I think Mon could be a QB3, but Kirk ends up going down or something.
Real quick, I would just like to say, did I not mention Romeo Dubs on our last podcast?
I believe you did.
I believe I did. I just mentioned him very quickly, I think, for a dark horse offensive rookie of the year. Man, he looked good. He looked good in that preseason game. I think he just had one drop pass that was pretty suspect. But, yeah, I'm excited to see him play. And, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you boys got to watch a lot of preseason, and I'm sure, just like I am, you are both foaming at the mouth for some regular season action, and I know that I am too. And that's why we're going to talk about our AFC rankings, how we think the records are going to go, and who we're going to see as the playoff seedings at the end of the year. So the way we're going to do this to kind of keep it concise is that only one person is going to go more in depth for their ranking for each team. So we're going to go by division, East, South, West, and... start with North, East, South, and then end with West. And then each person will take one team, we'll share our 3 record predictions, and then we'll go more into depth as to why we're all kind of feeling the same similar trend, or maybe why ours might be more different than compared to each other. But yeah, with that being said, Tyler, you want to start us out with the AFC North Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to talk about the Bengals. So I got the Bengals going 11-6, and then you two got them going 12-5. And what I've been seeing recently is obviously Bengals had a phenomenal offseason. That old line is looking really good. Maybe got a little bit of a weak spot at what would it be? Left guard, one of the guard positions, or I forget. There's still one position on the line that's still a little suspect, if not two. And then, they had a pretty good draft, but a very good offseason for that offense. And so you would expect them to be, going having a 12-5, 13-4 record. But, I can see the Bengals winning only 10 games. I threw in 11 just because they went to the Super Bowl. But last year, Bengals were, I would just like to preface this. We shouldn't take into account injuries obviously, for our predictions, but last year Bengals were the healthiest team in the league. And, that obviously clearly had something to do with their success. And, they were going up against the Ravens, who were just completely decimated by injuries at the end of the year. And so I think it's going to be regression towards the mean with injuries for them. There's no way they can finish, number one in injuries again. So, they exceeded expectations greatly last year. And they win about 11. Did they win 11 games last year? I think so.
Yeah, 11-6, yeah, about there.
And if that's exceeding expectations last year, I think 10, 11 games this year is right on expectations for the Bengals squad. So they still got, a ton of weapons. Joe Burrow, should hopefully takes, if he takes another step, he could be an MVP candidate. It's just that there's a little uncertainty with that secondary still, and the linebackers aren't the greatest. Just the defense just has some holes in it. So, and also the taking into account regression for injuries, I think. 11-6 is still a solid season for them. It just might not reach the expectations a lot of the NFL fans have for the team that just went to the Super Bowl and improved their roster greatly. So, if you guys just have a real quick thought about the Bengals.
Yeah. Like you said, I could easily see them get to 10 wins as well. Because not every team's gonna be, very healthy throughout the entire year like the Bengals were last year. But I just think the experience that they had from that playoff run last year, I think will also just benefit greatly for Burrow and Chase. I think Chase is just a flat out monster. Mixon will do his thing, and defensively, they I don't believe they had many major losses either with players leaving, so they should be able to. They're pretty much running it back with the team they had last year, but could they have a little bit of a hangover from the run they had last year? Sure, but I still think the Bengals will be pretty solid, and I could, anywhere in that double digit 10, 11, 12 wins, I could easily see them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to also touch on the fact that their core of it, their guys on offense are so young, so there is a very good chance we aren't even seeing their peak or their ceiling as professional players. So there is definitely a good chance that they will be even better than last year record-wise, but I think that 10 to 11 wins is definitely within reason for a team like that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, I'll move on to the Ravens here. I have the Ravens at 13-4, and Tyler and Wantuck have them at 12-5. My reasoning for the Ravens at 13-4 is Ravens are kind of my crush team this year. I'm a big Ravens guy going into this year. I think with the injuries that decimated them last year was all a fluke. This year I just expect a lot better things for them that can make them to 13 wins. And X factor is obviously Lamar getting back to doing what Lamar can do. They keep their offense coordinator, Greg Roman, who just gets Lamar, knows how to operate him very well. So with Harbaugh and getting a healthy J.K. back this year, and Gus Edwards, and I think Bateman takes a step up too, and Andrews obviously being a top 3 tight end in this league. But then also on the O-line, drafting Tyler Linderbaum, who just, I was saying this by the draft time, just a Ravens type center, just a agile run blocking center who just fits that scheme of get an O-line and just get a push up front so Lamar and J.K. and them can do their thing. So obviously pairing that with Daniel Falele, who they drafted as well from Minnesota, and Ben Powers, and good O-linemen that'll do their thing for the push up front. And then defensively, adding Marcus Williams out there at safety is going to be huge for them. Big upgrade over a Chuck Clark that they had, and Earl Thomas from years before. Drafting Kyle Hamilton the first round can do good things for them too. You can play him at safety, you can put him at nickel corner, stand him up in middle linebacker. You can do anything you want. Kyle Hamilton's like a jack of all trades out there. Defensive line, you get Calais Campbell back, who's a big monster up front for them and can get a good push. Bring in Michael Pierce, who was obviously for the most part a bust in Minnesota, couldn't stay healthy on the field, but you get him back to Baltimore where he's comfortable with, and obviously succeeded there before. And then linebacker wise, Patrick Queen, and who I like a lot too. But Yeah, I think the Ravens just being able to stay healthy, which they should be able to a lot more this year, is going to be pretty key for them. But Wink Martindale to Don Martindale at defense corner was a loss for them too because of how good of a defense corner he is too. But they bring in Mike McDonald, who was at Michigan with their defense coordinator. Now John Harbaugh steals him from his brother Jim. Now he comes back to the NFL. But yeah, I think the Ravens can stay healthy, can stay healthier this year, and I think they make a big jump from last year.
Yeah, just kind of bouncing off that, I think, 2 years ago it was that they had the number one rushing offense in the league. Is that correct? Pretty sure.
I believe so, yeah.
And then the Eagles stole it last year with Hurts, but they could, with a healthy Lamar and then a center like Linderbaum that just knows how to get to the second level. He's not a big guy, but he's super agile. And what's important for that center position is getting around guys and getting to the second level. And if they can get back to that number one rush offense in the league, Lamar doesn't have to worry about the weapons that he has or doesn't have. Bateman and Andrews are two solid weapons, but he's still lacking depth, obviously, at the wide receiver position. Andrews is in the middle of the field most of the time, so that might hurt them, honestly. But yeah, they could. I got them at 12-5. I also really like the Ravens. Injuries, they were just rocked with injuries. So yeah, I think they could take back that rushing offense title again, and that's going to be huge for them, especially in the AFC North.
Yeah, you both hit the nail on the head. I don't have any notes, so I'll just move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I personally have them at 7-10. Decker has them above 500, going 9-8, and Tyler has them just below, going 8-9. And I don't want to put any words in your guys' mouth, but I'd have to imagine that you think that most, if not all, of these wins will come off the back of the defense, which is still very strong this year. I was just looking over the roster. I don't believe they lost anybody. I think that they have a very similar team. I mean, obviously, with that whole entire linebacking core with Watt and Bush and Miles Jack, that is a very good group to have. And with their safeties and secondary, it's another really good group with Minka Fitzpatrick and even Edmonds is more than solid, obviously. At the safety, it's just a very solid group that will, I think, get them at least 7 wins this year. And the part with the Steelers that is the most questionable is obviously their room at QB. We don't currently. They have Trubisky listed as their starter, they have Mason Rudolph at second, and then they have Kenny Pickett at third. It's just there's a lot of big question marks. I mean, obviously, Trubisky comes off being a backup in Buffalo, and he hasn't started in a long time, and he had that one good year in Chicago, but we still have yet to see if he's going to be able to put the team on his back at points and be more than a game manager or even be a game manager at that. And clearly Kenny Pickett's not ready yet because they have him listed at third. He's behind Mason Rudolph. So that's my biggest question mark right now. Clearly, if Trubisky plays well, their win number could go way up, but that's just the thing that I have right now. Because he has great weapons to do it with, because he has Deontay Johnson. He has Chase Claypool, who, while some people don't like his attitude towards some things, he's still a solid player. And George Pickens has looked, he looked great in that first preseason game. He had that one really good catch in the end zone, got the toe tap. And Pat Freiermuth, this is more of an inside joke, but I absolutely love Pat Freiermuth. He is my boy. And their O-line is obviously the biggest issue. They were one of the worst units last year. They could definitely be that again this year, but Yeah, that's my thinking. It's a team that could obviously be much better than 7-10, but realistically, I think if they win anything, it's going to be their defense. So 7-10 is my final verdict.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on too much, but I think I got them at 9-8, and my reasoning behind this is if you can get 8 wins with Big Ben, that's saying something. That defense will carry you and will win you games, but Tomlin is always around at his worst, it's around the 500 mark. He doesn't really finish much below that. He's always, back when it was like 8-8 or 9-7, he's always around there when the Steelers teams that weren't dominant and making the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl games. But if it holds true and they stick with Trubisky the entire year, I really don't mind that. I just think that Trubisky, the year in Buffalo he had and under the sitting under Allen and learning of the tutelage under Dable and that, I think can pay off big time for him. I think he's a lot better situation than what he was in Chicago. Chicago, Nagy was supposed to be this offensive guru, working with Alex Smith and a young rookie Mahomes, but this is just a far better situation. I think Trubisky's matured a little bit more, and being under a stable organization like the Steelers and just having that supporting cast around you, I think they could easily make it to 9-8, 8-9. But with Tomlin still there, I just do not see him falling too far below 500.
I agree. Yeah. So I'll just since no one had the Browns, I'll just cover them quick. I have them at 6-11. Decker has them at 5-12. Sam has them at 7-10. These predictions are without Deshaun Watson for the whole year. So and there's uncertainty around him playing. I don't think he's going to play the year. At least he shouldn't. But I think their run game and their secondary is good enough for 6 wins. But beyond that, I don't really trust them. But hey, Jacoby Brissett, we trust. Maybe he pulls something out of his bag this year. But all right, Sam, should we move on to the AFC East?
I believe that is the move.
Okay, I'll start off with the Bills here. This is I don't know if it's it's a pretty big hot take. I would say obviously I think a lot of the people have Bills being very good, but currently I have the Bills at 15-2. Wantuck has them at 14-3. Tyler at 12-5. I know many of you listening will end up saying this. Whoa, Deck, pump the brakes here. 15-2. Are you out of your damn mind? Maybe, but I'm a big Bills guy. I'm more of a Ravens guy, but I'm a big Bills guy as well this year. Josh Allen, I think is going to, obviously, you will find out from the awards picks, he was my MVP. He was also Wantuck's MVP. I think he continues to make leaps and boundaries from year after year. I think he's just that special. And when you add, when you have a Diggs and you had Jamison Crowder, you got Gabriel Davis. The running backs aren't great. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, very average running backs. But, James Cook turned into something as he's been having a very good camp. And then defensively adding Von Miller with that extra pressure off the edge. And you got Gregory Rousseau. Back into the safeties, you got Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White. I just think the Bills are just, there's something about them. I could just see them going on some type of magical run where they could be like a Packers team from 2011 or something where they go 15-1. But the loss of Dable might hurt them a little bit, obviously. He was a very good offensive coordinator for what he did with that team. But they kept Ken Dorsey, who was their quarterback's coach in previous years, so they stay in-house here with their offensive coordinator hire, and obviously a guy that knows the system and knows how things operate around there, and Sean McDermott doing his thing with the defense. I just think the Bills could really be something special this year.
Yeah, I think I definitely understand that. I mean, I had them at 14-3, so I think we're in a similar line of thinking. But I was looking at their the record last year. I was actually surprised, because they went 11-6, but because it didn't really feel like that. But then I remembered that they had games like the one against Jacksonville where they lost. Was it?
It's like 9-6 or something like that. It was like a field
goal
game.
9-6, which makes me wonder, maybe that they'll still have those flukes this year where they should have probably won handily, but they didn't, which is why I think that the full 14-3 and the 15-2 is definitely risky, but I think if a team were to go 15-2, it would be the Bills.
I want to emphasize how hard it is for a team to win 13 or more games. It is extremely, extremely difficult. Let alone, obviously the best teams in football are going to get to 12 wins, but that 13 is, that's a very, very impressive season. Now, we've seen the Packers do it 2 years in a row, and I can tell you, they don't lose the fluke games. They win the easy ones, but that's the thing. They're fluke games for a reason. You never know when they're going to sneak up on you. So I think predictions at it's a little safe 12-5, but I think it's still over their projected win total. So I think it's a safe pick, I guess. So Sam, you want to talk about the Dolphins?
I would absolutely love to. So with the Miami Dolphins, we all have them being pretty middle of the road. I currently have them at 9-8. Tyler has them at 8-9, and Decker has them at a low 7-10. So I think the biggest thing with this team and the question mark around them, similar to the Steelers, is going to be their quarterback play by Tua Tagovailoa. Is he going to take another step and really fuel this offense to a higher echelon, or will they continue to middle around a little longer? And I think we can all see that we all agree that it's probably going to be the middling, because they have a good group of running backs. None of them are absolutely spectacular. Like Chase Edmonds, he has the receiving upside, but he's not going to be a bell cow. But I don't think that's what they're going for. And then obviously Tyreek Hill was the big trade of the offseason at wide receiver. I don't think he's going to play the same way that he played with Mahomes, because you're talking about a massive downgrade. You're going from what is considered a top 2 arm in the NFL to definitely a below average arm in terms of arm strength. Tyreek can try and gas up to as much as he wants. That's not going to change how strong his arm is. I don't think that he's going to be nearly as effective as he was on the Chiefs. Jalen Waddle is definitely a guy who could massively improve this year, because he had a lot of... he played great his first year as a wide receiver 1, and now Hill could definitely help him get more open. I do think that Waddle will be the better receiver stat-wise on this offense. Mike Gesicki, it's a take, but we'll just have to wait and see. And now we got tight end Mike Gesicki. He's solid, obviously. He's a very good tight end. He's definitely on the upper half of the league. The O-line is pretty solid. They brought in Terran Armstead this past offseason. That's definitely going to be a huge help for their O-line. Other than that, nobody that's really name-worthy, but still not a bad unit by any means. And the defense is definitely solid in the secondary. They had Holland come out of nowhere last year and really form into his own. Because you got Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, who are 2 very good corners. And the linebacker room with Jalen Phillips, maybe he'll take another step coming into his second year. But this is a group that is definitely very what if, nothing is definitely certain with them, which is why I think we've all chosen very middle of the road rankings. 9-8 is definitely where I would put them.
Yeah, where I'm hesitant with the Dolphins is first year head coach Mike McDaniels. Is it McDaniels or just Daniels?
I think it's just McDaniel.
McDaniel.
Yeah, McDaniels.
Yeah. I love the guy. I think he's a great personality and a good, good guy to have at head coach. It's just I feel like there's games that he's gonna drop just due to being out coached, and that's just gonna happen when you're a first year head coach and being at how young he is. Their front seven's a little suspect too. They still got some good players, but I think I got them winning one less game than you want to talk. So yeah, it all fringes on Tua to me. So yeah.
Same here. I think just the first year head coach McDaniel. I think he can be a good coach. He's kind of he kind of brings a Dan Campbell type of vibe to me, where he's just could be a good culture builder for that organization, a real players coach. But I just think the first year might just be a kind of a rough one, but year 2 could be a playoff type year. So
I got the Patriots going 8-9. So does Decker, and Sam's got them going 6-11. Okay, we talk about Mike Tomlin, not having a record under 500, whatever, ever in his career. I think with how bad we might think that Belichick drafts, he's still a phenomenal head coach. He knows what he wants in players. So I think, the disrespect he got this offseason was a little out of hand personally. Now I don't have them winning, having a winning record, but I will say I feel like some people might, expect them to finish last in their division, even behind the Jets. But for me, that offense is starting to look better and better every year. Mac Jones had a solid rookie season. He flashed at times, but I think obviously their strong suit is they're going to be that run game. They got a phenomenal offensive line. Hopefully Cole Strange develops into something at right guard. Some people think he was a reach, but like I said, Belichick knows what he wants. Belichick, he's gonna win at the line. He's known for his tough front sevens and his big O lines. So I think we're might be, especially you, Sam, at 6-11, might be discounting him just a little bit maybe, but I can see why you think they got some holes. Losing J.C. Jackson was absolutely massive. Their best cornerback is now Jalen Mills, and he is nothing special at all. And they asked their cornerbacks to do a lot in this defense. So I'm excited to see how their secondary steps up with that, with him leaving. So yeah, I got them 8-9. Deck, you had them 8-9, and Sam 6-11. So all I gotta say is don't discredit Belichick too much. So
yeah, it was definitely tough making that decision. It was just going on a game by game basis. I thought to myself, like, which team do I think? Well, I mean, obviously, which team I think would do better, and for some reason, I found myself thinking the Patriots would not be that team. I think that, because it hinges on defense, and now with a suspect secondary, because you got McCourty, who's 39 years old now. It's just kind of Duggar back there at this point.
Do they still got Jonathan Jones?
They got Jabril Peppers.
Oh, yeah, Jabril Peppers, who just seems like a Patriots player in my opinion. Just fits the Belichick mold.
Their roster might have some holes, obviously, but I think what people don't take into consideration a lot is just how much, coaches can get out-coached. We saw it in the Super Bowl against the Rams. They had the number 1 offense that year, and Belichick just picked them to pieces. Held them to 3 points in the Super Bowl. That's insane. So I think when you look at game-to-game basis, it's easy to look at how does this offense line up against this defense or vice versa without looking at how does this coach, is he able to outcoach this one? And, Belichick's known for taking away an offense's number 1 threat. And, some offenses only have one threat. And, that's going to be a problem for some teams. And I think, I think coaching is obviously a really big factor to take into those record predictions. So,
Good point. Good point.
I agree.
And so then, so I can kind of touch lightly on the Jets. Jets fans look away because we think it's going to be another year of darkness. So I have them at a 5-12. Decker has them at 4-13, and Tyler has them at a high of 6-10.
this is pre Zach Wilson injury too.
Exactly. Yes. Pre Zach Wilson injury. I think if Zach Wilson went down, I think I'd have you at 17-0 with Mike White starting. So, yeah. So with that joke out of the way, that's not much to say. If there's a worst team in the East, it's just the Jets.
Yeah.
Not much
And losing
else to say
Mekhi
about
Becton
that.
for a second year in the row is obviously bad. They signed Dwayne Brown, who's there. So
They could. It looks like injuries could maybe derail a season. As much as the 4-13 record looks like I hate them, I do like what they did, adding Sauce, Gardner, and Jermaine Johnson and Garrett Wilson. I do like some of the moves they have made. I just think it could be just another rough year before they can take another good leap, especially with Becton going down, can't staying healthy, and who knows what this season could bring for Wilson. But
Yeah. Well, Deck, do you want to take us into the South with the Tennessee Titans?
sure, I can start off with the Titans as they are my division winner. I have them at 10-7. Tyler has them at 11-6, and Wantuck at 8-9. My reasoning for the Titans is with Vrabel there, I still think they will be a very competitive team. I'm not a very Tannehill type of guy, but just being able to lean on the shoulders of Derrick Henry, which they have done in seasons past here, shows that he can carry them to, like last year with the season he was having a 1 seed. Obviously went down late in the season, but can take him to a 1 seed before, and like they did last year. But AJ Brown being a loss, but replacing that with the Traylon Burks, who's a rookie first rounder. You bring in Robert Woods, who still suspect with coming off the ACL injury, and then bringing in Austin Hooper, a more capable tight end than they've had since John Smith's been there. But and then defensively, the secondary is a big suspect for the Titans, but I do like what they have up front too, and at linebacker. But in a pretty weak division for the most part, I think Titans can take it. Colts are going to be competitive too, but just for me, the Titans just being able to lean on a healthier Derrick Henry this year as it could be. I think 10-7 can be pretty respectable for them. I could also see him at like a 9-8, but or 11-6, but for me, just 10-7. That's what I got.
Sam, do you mind if I take back half of this one?
You bet.
So I have them going 11-6. And I think last year, they were a lot like the Ravens, and this is partially why Vrabel won Coach of the Year last year. It's because, right, he won. Zach Taylor. Vrabel was in the running. My bad. I believe he was second, but that Titans team had some really serious injuries. And even this year, they lost AJ Brown. AJ Brown didn't even have over 1,000 receiving yards last year. He had just under 900. So I mean, as big of a hole he leaves, it also comes down to coaching again, and they do have a very solid defense still. Their D line is good. Their O line is starting to get a little suspect to me. Their secondary's good. But it all kind of fringes on how that offense can not only recover through Derrick Henry's injury, but also finding a reliable pass catcher that isn't named AJ Brown. So, I have them going 11-6. I got a lot of faith in Vrabel and that defense especially. I think they're very underrated right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't have much to add to that. I guess I'm just slightly more pessimistic about their situation. And so now, moving on to the Texans, this might be the only team that we all agree on as for a record. We have them all So the Texans are going to go 3-14 according to all of us across the board, and I'll be totally honest. I think the Texans might be one of the better 3-14 teams that you're going to see out there. Not saying that they'll still be good by any means, but I don't know. I like Davis Mills a lot. I think if you were to consider situation with stats, Davis Mills was by far the best quarterback of the rookie class last year. I think he caught a lot of people by surprise, and with some of his arm talent that he was able to show off, I think he could take another step forward. And one thing that also caught people by surprise last year was that the running game turned out to be pretty serviceable. Rex Burkhead showed that he still had more in the tank, and they brought in Marlon Mack, who is definitely a very big question mark because he's been used quite sparingly over the past couple seasons, whether it's due to injury or otherwise. So that's going to be a big question mark, but there's definitely good upside to that new running back. I mean, obviously the receiving room is quite sparse when you're looking outside of Brandon Cooks, but Brandon Cooks is one of probably the most underrated receiver in the NFL. He's still quite young. I think he's only 27, which is definitely young considering how many years of experience he has in the league. And the line still sucks. I mean, outside of Tunsil, it's not great by any means.
They're anchored with Tunsil. It's decent. They would have been better if they drafted someone at 3, but it's still it's a good old line.
They had a Kenyon Green in the first round out of Texas A&M, which I think he could turn out to be a good guard.
Oh yeah.
But sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, you're okay.
I was just gonna add real quick. The most underrated wide receiver is the one behind Cooks, and that's Nico Collins. Put some respect on his name, boy.
That is somebody else who I also thought could be solid, but I just think that history speaking, Cooks has the most productivity.
Fine, I'll give you that.
Yeah, we have different definitions of the word underrated. That's okay.
Let's not forget about your guy Chad Beebe in Houston now as well.
Aw, shit. Chad Beebe? I love that guy. Where is he? Oh my god, he's way down there on the depth chart. He's third behind Philip Dorsett.
That's rough.
Make it make sense.
Speaking of rough,
I don't get it.
Speaking of rough,
Yeah.
I can talk about the Jaguars. Back to disagreeing with each other. I got the Jaguars going 6-11. Dex got them going 5-12, and Sam at 3-14. I got them doubling their wins from last season, and I'll tell you, it's one reason, and that's bye to Urban Meyer. Like, if you could think of like one piece of a team that was just actively dragging you back and down and having them be at your head coach position, of course you're going to have a shitty record. Urban Meyer was sabotaging that team. He was just a horrible presence, horrible player coach, like didn't know what he was doing. And I think the addition, Doug Peterson, he's like a, I would say, top 10 head coach in the league right now, with his history. I think he was a very, very solid pickup for them, and I think just the fact of a head coaching change, I think that's going to double their win record. Not to mention Trevor Lawrence should look a lot better this year. He's got a decent O-line in front of him. They signed they drafted Travon Walker at 1 overall, who's mostly a run stopper. Should maybe get some reps at the outside for a pass rushing role, but I mean, he's added to the front 7. Their defense, nothing spectacular. They got some decent secondary people in the secondary. I know Andre Sisco. He's a decent. He was was he a day 2 draft pickup last year, Deck?
He was.
Yeah,
He was
and
a third rounder.
Yeah, third rounder. Yeah, and I know he's been looking good this offseason. So they got some young pieces in that defense that should hopefully play better this year. But I think I'm just coming from the standpoint that you can't do worse at the head coaching spot than Urban. And I think, like I said, that alone, that transition to Doug Peterson, who has now a young quarterback who's, very Wentzzy. He shows some signs of Carson Wentz, just throwing at awkward body angles. In Trevor Lawrence, I think that's just going to be phenomenal for Trevor in his development. And they signed a superstar wide receiver in Christian Kirk, man. I mean, he's getting paid the big bucks for a reason. So, he's going to get the ball a lot this year, hopefully. But, I'm excited for that offense specifically. I don't think the defense is going to be anything too spectacular, but I can totally understand why you guys have them winning less than 6 games. I mean, I believe their line at Vegas is like 6.5, so they have them basically taking the over. You got them at 7, which is just a tad too rich for me. So,
yeah, I agree. I think Doug Peterson alone just can double their win total like you have them. But spending millions of dollars this offseason, bringing in Christian Kirk and they got Brandon Scherf at right guard now and then Evan Ingram at tight end and Zay Jones they brought in, adding with Marvin Jones and Laviska and but you can't say if this turns out to be a disastrous season, which having them at 6-11, 5-12, I wouldn't consider disastrous considering the overhaul they're trying to make organizational wise, but it will. You can't say that Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the casting support system around him because you got James Robinson and you got a healthy Travis Etienne this year as well. So, I think this is could be a rough year, rough per se, but this it's going up. It's going up with Doug Peterson in there.
Yeah, that is definitely true. You can't get worse. I just don't know how much better they will be. But I'm excited to see how it goes for them.
You have them having the same record, but you're like, can't get any worse. Don't know how much better they can be.
Okay, well, it's like, I don't know. It's, yes, it definitely, Meyer wasn't great. But didn't they fire him in week 6, week 7?
Not that early. I want to see it was like.
Still, though, it's hard for an interim head coach to come in and, win. Especially when you're planning all offseason for one guy, So.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. It's definitely, I think a prediction that could change. But, I don't know. Jaguars just don't rub me the right way. To put it in a weird way. Yeah.
I'll talk about the Colts real quick.
Oh yeah.
I got Colts. I believe. No, I have the Titans winning the division, but I got the Colts in a close second. I have them at 11-6. Same with the Titans. Decker has them at 9-8, and Sam at 10-7. So I'm the highest on the Colts. They were one game away from getting into the playoffs last year, and that was with Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz, he didn't have a bad season statistically, but that's mostly because they made the offense very, very easy for him. It was hard to fail in that offense, but somehow Wentz still found a way at the end of the season. And I think just the elevation at quarterback play with Matt Ryan. Now, Matt Ryan's nothing spectacular these days, but he is head and shoulders above Carson Wentz. And I think just adding him to that offense is really going to catapult them, into the playoffs at least. I bet last year we were talking about them being a dark horse Super Bowl contender. If they made the playoffs, they came a game short. So I think, again, if they make the playoffs this year, they're definitely a dark horse Super Bowl contenders. They got, a very, very well-rounded offense, a very, very well-rounded defense. They added Stephon Gilmore for that secondary. I believe they just had one of their safeties retire. I can't remember which one. Anyways, but their defense is still solid. They got a very good front seven. So I think, with all that said, I think they finish around 11 wins. Could be more, could be less by like a game, but I think they're gonna be good.
Yeah, Matt Ryan is a big upgrade over Carson Wentz. Just I don't know, something about that. I easily I could see him at 11-6 like you have him, but I don't know, something about the team. It's just.
I mean, did they lose anyone though? Besides Wentz?
I think they only added Matt Ryan.
Did they? They
And
might have
I like
lost.
Matt
They,
Ryan
no,
a
no,
lot
no. They
more.
might have lost their right tackle. Now that I think about it.
So they lost.
Oh yeah, wait no, I thought you were a few years ago.
Lewinsky at right guard they lost.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They had Eric Fisher it was Costanzo a couple years ago they lost.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, that's
Fisher
what it
last
was.
year,
Yeah.
who Fisher didn't come back. But you still have, regardless, you still have Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith.
It's still a good O line. So my question is, Dak, you honestly think, they were so close last year. You still have them at 9-8. It's like what for you is going to take them over the edge to make the playoffs?
I think for me, maybe if you're in contention down the line in the middle of the year, obviously I'm bringing in Gilmore's big, and then Kenny Moore in the slot, but maybe one more piece. It was Kari Willis, the safety, that retired, but maybe one more corner I'd maybe like to see him add on the outside, and I don't know, linebacker for me, Bobby Okariki's pretty good, but I don't know. Regardless, other than that, I don't.
I guess they're pretty thin at wide receiver besides Pittman,
and then we got Pierce Campbell, but has Pierce Campbell ever really showed what he can really?
But they got the best running back, one of the best running backs in the league, and Jonathan Taylor behind that O-line, who's just, Matt Ryan's just gonna let him run. He's gonna catch dump off passes, and he's gonna let him run. So I don't know. This is probably the biggest one that I disagree with you on. I mean, I don't think they should have less than 10 wins.
I think a big thing that needs to be talked about with the Colts too is that Darius Leonard's now going by his middle name. He's now going by Shaquille.
You know what? You're right.
Shaquille
Put him
Leonard.
down 5. I got him 5-11. Okay, or 5.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, no, I missed this. When did this happen?
What a weird change. I saw this on the NFL Instagram page the other day where they were talking about the Colts did something on their Instagram page where they were like, if we made everybody superheroes, and they had like Matty Ice as like an Iceman type character, and it got to like Shaq Leonard. I'm going, who the hell is Shaq Leonard? And I'm like, oh, Darius Leonard. I'm like, I had to look it up. He now prefers to go by his middle name, Shaquille Leonard. So.
Well, that is debatably
debatably
a cooler name. So props to him.
Yeah, he's tapping into that Shaquille O'Neal energy, which I definitely could appreciate. Yeah. I'm a Shaq man. I love his ads for General Insurance.
And you love his office chairs.
Speaking of General, generally speaking, I think that the Chargers will be,
What a segue!
yeah, I know, segue of the year right there. Chargers will be one of the best teams in the league. I personally have them at 13-4. Tyler has them at a very close 12-5, and Decker kind of a disappointing 10-7 for a roster this stacked. I mean, obviously, they brought in a lot of big pieces. I mean, you look at J.C. Jackson to name one. You look at Khalil Mack to name another. It's just, I mean, they went pretty crazy signing the big names in free agency. It's definitely going to be interesting to see if they mesh well. But this is definitely one of the best rosters in the league on paper. Obviously, Justin Herbert is a young superstar. He has yet to churn out a bad season, and I think he will continue to keep getting better. I mean, Eckler is maybe, he's arguably a top 5, but more realistically, like a top 8 back in the NFL. You have a great receiving core with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Gerald Everett could be good at tight end. He played in Seattle last year, and he wasn't super impressive, but he could still be better. There's a great O line with Slater. I'm obviously Corey Linsley, and they brought in Zion Johnson. For some reason I could not say Zion, but Zion Johnson is going to fill a great hole for them. Did Storm Norton play last year? I've never heard this name.
Storm Norton did play. He was a former Viking at one point, but he did play.
Was he the right tackle?
He was the right tackle. Like
the worst rated passing offensive tackle last year. So they really needed help on that right side.
Yeah, he had decimated pretty much every game.
Well, he's listed as a starter. That's not great. Sorry, because I've never heard of that guy, and I thought that is the coolest name. I mean, second to Shaq Leonard.
Yeah, there. Callback.
Yeah, but yeah, that is a pretty cool name. It sucks that he sucks though, apparently. And then they've got a great front, obviously, with Bosa, and then you bring in Khalil Mack, and you bring in Jackson, and if Derwin James is back and healthy, you got a great secondary. So I think the sky is the limit for this team. As I mentioned slightly earlier, it's going to be interesting to see how it all meshes together. But I definitely think that if there is a 13-win team in this league, it is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I said earlier that it's extremely difficult to win 13 games, and honestly, this year, if there's a team to do it, I think it's the Chargers. They, like Sam said, they look the best on paper, and I think a very underrated signing is Sebastian Joseph Day for that defensive line. Chargers had a horrible run defense, and Jerry Tillery at their nose tackle is an absolute bum. He sucks, so they really needed to buff up that defensive line. And what Khalil Mack is kind of lost in his pass rush these past couple years in Chicago. He's gained in his run defense. He's a phenomenal edge run defender, and I think, like I said, that Sebastian Joseph Day signing, he is probably one of, if not the best run defensive tackle run defender. He is very good, very underrated signing, and they got J.C. Jackson in that secondary now, along with Asante Samuel and a top 3 safety with Derwin James. So, we all think it, we all know it. It's probably the best roster on paper, and how well they execute this year is really up to the coach. So I'm really excited to see how the Chargers do this year.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I do. It's so tough because I do love what the Chargers are doing, and I do love their roster. It's just the division that they're in for me, ultimately making them 10-7 for me. That division any team can really take off and be so good in my opinion. But
do you have them going 3-3 in their division?
I can't remember if I did or not. Just like coming down to it, and like you said, it coaching too. Will Brandon Staley cost him another game like he did in Week 18 in Vegas? This year will it show if he's the right coach for them as well? So, or do they need to go get someone else like a Sean Payton next offseason who could be out there?
That would be phenomenal. And real quick, another thing is just a little bit more depth at the wide receiver position would just be one more like cherry on top for that team.
Yeah, that would be very good.
Yeah. They could bring in Odell.
He's probably not even going to play this year. He tore his ACL in the Super Bowl.
He's Odell. He'll figure it out.
He's like, okay.
He's 29. He's not old.
Well, who's next?
I guess I can take it.
We got Dak.
Yeah, I guess I can take it into the Chiefs here. I got him at 11-6. Tyler has him at 12-5. Wontok at 11-6 as well. The Chiefs are my division winner for my predictions. Mainly put Patty, That's all you could really say is Patty is just so damn special. Andy Reid there still. Eric Bieniemy, who could be a head coach somewhere, but still running it back as offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Something about him just not getting him head coaching jobs. I'm thinking maybe he's just an awful interviewer. There's something about it where he's not getting the jobs, but keeping Bieniemy and Reid there for Mahomes is very, very key. And Tyreek Hill, a massive loss for that offense. A lot of pressure is going to be put on the shoulders of Kelsey now, but bringing in Juju, obviously the man's a walking meme. Just continues to put out crazy TikTok videos. He's a very crazy guy, but Juju decimated with injuries last year. Obviously, all the jokes aside, Juju can be a good receiver. He wasn't the Juju he was like when AB was there in Pittsburgh, but maybe Mahomes can get something more out of him. Sky Moore, who they drafted, Miko Hardman, who's hasn't really shown a lot of potential at receiver like many thought he could with Tyreek Hill, but overall, still keeping Patty there at quarterback will the experience will pay off for that team, where I think they could win the division. The O-line too, very, very solid O-line, and then defensively, Honey Badger is a big loss, but you still got a lot of key pieces around there. Nick Bolton at linebacker, and Chris Jones and Frank Clark, and bringing in a Carlos Dunlap, a veteran defensive end as well. I just think the experience ultimately pays off for this team in the division.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, obviously the big, they arguably lost the number 2 players on their offense and defense. I would say, value wise, Tyreek Hill was definitely the second most valuable player on that offense, and same with the Honey Badger on the defense, right behind Chris Jones. But I think their first round draft was really, really good with Karlaftis and McDuffie. Those guys will fill holes, and Karlaftis is pretty solid. He's been showing really well in camp, and I think it's just we go back to coaching. It's Andy Reid's just such a phenomenal coach, and I think going back to Bieniemy point, not to pick hairs, but it's we did see the Chiefs offense kind of stall last year and Mahomes struggle and not a lot of adjusting. So that could play into it, but it's I think the Chiefs find a way. I think they lean heavy on Kelsey. They lean heavy on that the Mahomes arm, and I think Ronald Jones is not bad of a running back actually. I think he's better than Clyde for sure. He lost the trust of Arians in Tampa Bay, and that's why he's gone. Just after a bad game, really, is why he got benched for Fournette in Tampa. I think Jones is actually a decent running back who can actually elevate that more than Clyde could have. So, that's why I'm just a game higher on them personally. So,
yeah, that's fair. I mean, I would say that you summed it up well, because it's definitely a team that's going to get still can get the job done most weeks. Definitely not their strongest roster, so probably not a 13-win team, but they'll still be in that conversation and definitely will still be a playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll just finish up with the Broncos. I have them going 9-8, Deck at 10-7, Sam at 11-6. And what I don't get is Colin Cowherd going on his nationally televised show and saying that the Broncos are going to win this division. It's it's already hard enough to win with a first-year quarterback. Now throw in a first-year head coach. Well, I shouldn't say first-year quarterback. A quarterback in a new system with a brand-new first-year head coach. Now, that quarterback just so happens to be Russell Wilson, who is phenomenal, but future Hall of Famer. But it's last episode I said Nathaniel Hackett is probably the second best head coach in this division. I do stand by that take, but it's Russ. It's going to be interesting to see the dynamic between those two, how much he lets Russ do his thing and vice versa. And I think that Broncos defense is just getting a little overrated in my opinion. Bradley Chubb has 7 sacks total in the past like 3 years. You know, he was supposed to be this Von Miller replacement, and he is kind of just a bum in the pass rush. Solid run defender. I don't know who they have at linebacker. Do they still have Josie Jewell? He was like the only one.
Yeah. Alexander Johnson, 2M middle linebacker, was another pretty solid one.
They're, it's like they gave up a lot for Russ too, and it's like I do like Alberto, but Noah Fant knew the system. Well, would have been a new system. He was a decent tight end, good athlete, and then who was their defensive lineman that they traded away to?
Shelby Harris.
So I think that offense or that defense is starting to get just a little overrated, and it's not something that they're going to be able to like lean back on when their offense is struggling, I think. So I just have some reservations about the Broncos that showing my record, and I don't think they win. I don't think they reach 10 wins. So, and I think they're just a little overrated. That's all.
Yeah, I might definitely get what you're saying with like when their offense struggles, I don't think their defense is going to be able to hold up much that well either. I mean, looking at this group, I don't think it's an offense that's going to struggle often with the receiving core the way it is, with the running game the way it is, on the O-line definitely being above average. I don't think they're going to struggle that often, which is why I think 11-6, but it's definitely an important concern to bring up because, they're definitely not close to being a top unit in defense.
Yeah, I just think 10-7. Could it be 9-8 like you, Tyler? Obviously, I very much think anybody. It's a coin flip with games in this division, but I think the Wilson-Hackett connection can really work, and obviously getting a big offensive guy with Wilson, who Hackett did good things with Rodgers and in Green Bay, and then you got Melvin and Javonte as a 1-2 there, and you got Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, and a solid O-line as well, I'd say. And then the defense, it is. I think the defense will regress from last year, but I still do love Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain back there. But yeah, everything's a coin flip in this division. Really is. We'll have to see how.
Oh, I will say last again, going back to last episode, I did say how much Randy Gregory helped out Micah Parsons when he was with the Texans, and now I'm kind of shitting on the Broncos defense, even though Randy Gregory is there now. I just looked into it. I don't think Randy Gregory has had over like a 10-sack season, so he's nothing. He's nothing spectacular. He's a good player, but it's like he might have played his best year of ball last year, so that's why I'm just a little lower on the Broncos. So
yeah, and then to wrap up with the Raiders, Tyler and I have them at 10-7. And Decker has them at 9-8, and I definitely believe that part of the reason why none of us had them winning this division, from what I can tell from these records, is because every team did improve or like stayed pretty similar. I think it's just that the Raiders are definitely a team that did improve the least. They brought in Chandler Jones, who had the 5-sack game, but then finished with like 10 sacks total. I don't think he's that guy, and I'm unsure that bringing in Adams and having Waller back, hopefully healthy for the full season, will help. But yeah, it's going to be an incredibly tough division, and I think that 10-7 will be last in this division, which is why it's that good. But if there has to be a team that gets last, I think it's going to be the Raiders.
I'm sorry. I just had the most puzzled look on my face when you said that Chandler Jones isn't that guy. Chandler Jones has more sacks than J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald in the past, however long they've been in the league.
I'm pretty sure it's career sacks, right? Yeah. Because they all started the same year.
Sure. So he is most definitely that guy, right? And now you're pairing him with Max Crosby, who is also that guy, I think, that's a very, very, very formidable pass rush duo. And, we talk about, how important it is to have, two guys that can effectively rush the passer. And Chandler Jones is no slouch in the running game too, where, so I think the Raiders offense is going to be phenomenal. I will say that. I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a bounce back year. That O-line is definitely had some younger guys on it last year that needed that year to get better. And so, Derek Carr was a dark horse, MVP candidate during the season, and they added the best wide receiver in the league, not to mention a top 3 tight end. It's like how much can Josh what's his last? I always mix up the two. No, the head coach, McDaniels. How much can he take control and take advantage of these offensive pieces, right? And so I think just that alone is gonna win them. If they get into a shootout, I think that's gonna win them the game, right? Because defenses are basically gonna be wiped off the board, right, by these offenses in this division. And with that said, I still have them at 10-7, but if you're a betting person, definitely take the Raiders over at 8.5. So that's a solid win. There's no way they win less than 9 games, I would say.
Yeah, I for me 9-8, again, I've mentioned this before in the video, but coin flip, but I really do like what the Raiders have offensively. Obviously, very, very, very good skill set, at receiver and then tight end and running back. But offensive line still a big question mark for me. They didn't really add a whole lot there. I think they're pretty much running it back. Obviously, Richie Incognito retired, but running it back for the most part. And then secondary wise, still, big kind of what can they really do? But I love Derek Carr as a leader. I think Derek Carr is one of, in my opinion, the best leaders in the NFL. I mean, just the way this guy takes control of a room and picks up teammates. Like, obviously, Henry Ruggs last year doing what he did. Obviously, very, very bad situation. But Derek Carr is still showing support for him, showing, that we need to still love him as a group and teammates. But so I think Derek Carr is a great leader, which can pick up that team. But Josh McDaniels, obviously a big, big bum and bust in his first run as a head coach. But, talking 12 years ago with Denver, but this second time around after another long tenure with Belichick, does he take the next step in head coaching now that he's older and seen more years? We'll see if that comes down to it. But 9-8 for me for the Raiders, but could be 10-7. I could have the Broncos at 9-8 too.
Yeah. Let's quick pound out these seedings. So, Sam, you want to start with your playoff seedings?
Yes. So I'm going to go from bottom to top. So I've got the Broncos at 7, Chiefs at 6, and Bengals at 5. Those are my 3 wild card teams. And then last in the divisions is going to be the Colts winning their division. Ravens are going to squeak out the 3rd seed against the Bengals. I think it's going to be a close call. Chargers are going to be number 2. And then Bills are going to be my number 1 seed.
Okay. Like one talk, I also had the Broncos as my 7th seed. I got the Chargers on my 6th seed. I got the Broncos, even though they went 12-5, I had them going, still finished 5. In the 5 seed, Titans win the division at 10-6. I got them at my 4. Chiefs winning the AFC West at number 3. Ravens at number 2. And then Bills number 1 for me.
I think you meant to say Bengals at number 5. I think you said Broncos.
I also heard that, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Broncos or Bengals at 5 for Decker. All right, and then for me, I got the Colts at 7. I really, really wanted to find a way to put the Raiders in at 7, but I think the Colts are just a little bit better. Colts at 7, Bengals at 6, Chiefs at 5, and then for my division winners, I got Titans at 4, then the Ravens at 3, Bills at 2, and then the Chargers got the 1 seed. So
that is our AFC predictions and our playoff seedings. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. We've had a lot of fun talking about this and making our predictions. So at least it goes both ways. It's a win-win. So, obviously, thank you for watching. And you have a great night, everyone.